Welcome! In this series of videos, we will look at topics common to both the PowerBasic Console and Windows compilers. Today we will look at the use of the string parse command. In this series of videos, we'll be covering topics which are common to both the PowerBasic Windows compiler and the PowerBasic Console compiler. In order to do this, I've set up a small common library to allow us to display information on the screen from a program regardless of whether you're using the Windows or the Console compiler. There are three basic functions in this common display library. There's prep output, log, and wait. The parse command is a very powerful string handling command. If we were to look at a simple string, this string contains two words, the first and second names of someone, delimited by a comma. If we wish to access elements of this string, we can use the parse command. The parse command takes the string as the first parameter. It then takes the delimiter of the string and then the element of the string that you wish to return. In this case, we're interested in the first element, which would be this word here. If we output that to the log, we would get the first name coming back quite happily. If we changed for the second element, we would get the second name. If the element number is negative, you're instructing the parse command to work from the right hand side of the string backwards. In other words, this would get the last element, which would be the surname. Now, if the information you're bringing in is coming from a large file, in this case a file that's been output from Excel, it is not only delimited by a comma, but each element is contained in double quotes. Additionally, some of the elements have embedded commas. The parse command can quite easily be used to read through this file and pull out each individual element on its own, including those with embedded commas. So, how can we actually do this? Well, the first thing to do is to read the file. We have in our common library, the first parameter is the name and location of the file. In this case, the file exists within the same folder as our executable. And our second parameter is the name of the array. This function will return a true or false, true if it finds and manages to load the file, and false if it does not. So we managed to read the file. One thing we'll want to do is to work out, is the file the one we actually want? And many of you have automated routines, you may be wanting to read files that you have not previously seen. Since the file has a header line, we're going to pull the header line in and we're going to count the number of columns. We can use the parse count command for this. Since we know that the header line is in the 0 element of the file, we can use the $QCQ, which is double quote, comma, double quote, which is a constant that PowerBasic maintains, as this is the delimiter of the file, as in quote, comma, double quote. This will tell us how many columns are in the file. Now, for maintainability, you want to be sure that you're picking up columns from the right place. In this case, we have a total of 6 columns, and each column has a name. Now, if at some point in the future the format of this file changes and a new column is inserted between surname and address, you don't want to actually restructure the code too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out where each of these headers actually appears in the list of columns. So to do that, we're going to create 2 variables for each of the columns, a long and a string. We can determine the first name column position using another function which is in our common library, parse find. in the parse find function, passing the header data with the delimiter and what we expect to find on the first line, which in this case is the first name with a double quote in front of it. This will give us the column number of first name. So if at some point in the future the column number actually changes, then our program will determine it based on the header line. We will do exactly the same for the other two columns we're interested in to pick up the surname column position and the address column position. Having done that, we'll want to read through our array. To do this, we'll use a for next loop, and we'll read just the first 5 records out of the file. When you're ready to read the entire file, remove the 1 to 5 and make it 1 to ubound and the name of the array. Now, if we pick up the first line, as so, and we'll just declare these variables we've just started using. So str data should now contain the data line. Now what we want to do is to pick up the first name. And this is where the parse command comes in. Now we're giving it str data, which contains the entire line. There will then be a delimiter. Now I'll come back to the delimiter in a moment. We're using the long value we determined for the position of the first name column, and we can output that to the log. Now if we put it in as a comma, before we run our program, we'll need to add the library. So having added the library to the includes at the beginning, we can now run our code. As you can see, we have pulled out the first name from the first 5 lines. However, the double quotes around the name. If we attempt to put the surname in, and also the address, if we run that code now, we will see it's not quite delivering all the information we want. In our file, the address actually has an embedded comma in it. So what we're getting out on the screen here, apart from the fact they've all got quotes, we're only pulling out the first part of the address. We're not pulling out the bit after the comma. So how can we handle this? Well, the parse command has one trick up its sleeve. If we remove the delimiter completely and basically say there is no delimiter, there's some special code behind the parse command that will assume the comma delimited file could have double quotes around them all. So if we run our code now, we will see that the information returned is quite happily returning the first name and the surname, both without quotes, and it's returning the entirety of the address line, without quotes and with the comma intact. So the parse command is very powerful indeed, especially when it comes to reading Excel CSV files. So that completes this short introduction to the parse command, which you'll find one of the most powerful commands in string handling. Thank you for watching.